Emily and Jack seemed to have the life everyone envied. They were the picture of happiness, a couple deeply in sync with each other, sharing love, laughter, and an unbreakable bond. Jack, a devoted husband admired by friends and family alike, wore his love for Emily on his sleeve. He was hardworking, kind, and utterly enchanted by his wife. Their weekends were filled with cozy brunches, serene movie nights, and tender moments that painted a portrait of domestic bliss. Even after 5 years of marriage, Jack's eyes sparkled with the same joy he felt on their wedding day. Jack believed he knew Emily better than anyone else. To him, they weren't just husband and wife, they were soulmates. But over time, subtle cracks began to form in their seemingly perfect life. Emily, once brimming with excitement and eager to share every detail of her day, had grown distant. She laughed less, her gaze often avoiding his, and her presence felt like a shadow of what it once was. Jack tried to rationalize it. Perhaps the demands of her new marketing job were taking a toll. The long hours and frequent travel could easily explain her change in demeanor. Yet, a nagging sense of unease began to creep into Jack's heart, a quiet but persistent whisper that refused to be silenced. The first sign. One Friday night, Emily announced she was going out with her friends for a girls' night. Jack, ever the supportive husband, encouraged her to have fun. But as the hours passed, her texts dwindled to almost nothing. His stomach churned with a growing sense of dread. When Emily finally came home, it was well past midnight. She smelled faintly of cologne, her hair slightly disheveled. She stumbled through an explanation, laughing it off as a wild night out with her friends. Jack forced himself to push the doubts aside. He didn't want to become the kind of husband who questioned every move his wife made. Emily had always been trustworthy, or so he thought. The second sign. 2 weeks later, Jack found himself folding laundry, helping Emily after a long day. Her phone buzzed on the counter, the screen lighting up with a message from an unknown number. Last night was unforgettable. When can we do it again? Jack's breath hitched. His hands trembled as he set the laundry aside. The words seared into his mind, igniting a storm of emotions he struggled to suppress. Emily, noticing his expression, quickly grabbed her phone and swiped the message away, laughing nervously. "Work stuff," she said lightly, "just a silly joke from a client." Jack managed a strained smile, but the seed of doubt had firmly taken root. That night, he lay awake, replaying the message in his head, the knot in his stomach tightening with each passing moment. The truth unfolds. It was a rainy Saturday night when Jack's unease turned into action. Emily claimed she had to work late again. Jack kissed her goodbye, his heart heavy with suspicion. As he watched her car disappear into the distance, he couldn't ignore the suffocating weight of doubt pressing down on him. Without thinking, he grabbed his keys and followed her. He kept his distance, his headlights off, his heart pounding in his chest. She drove across town, eventually pulling into the parking lot of a small, dimly lit bar. A tall man with dark hair and an easy smile stood waiting at the door. Jack's world crumbled as he watched Emily step out of her car, her face lighting up with a laugh he hadn't seen in months. She wrapped her arms around the man in a way that made Jack's heart shatter. Betrayal. Jack sat frozen in his car, his breath shallow, his hands gripping the steering wheel. He watched as they disappeared inside the bar, the image of their embrace seared into his memory. Finally, he drove home, the rain blurring his vision as much as his tears. The house felt unbearably empty as he stumbled through the door. Anguish and betrayal coursed through his veins, numbing him to everything else. He poured himself a drink, then another, desperate to dull the pain. But even the burning warmth of the liquor couldn't silence the torment in his mind. His perfect life had unraveled before his eyes, leaving him drowning in a sea of unanswered questions and a heartbreak he never imagined he'd endure. What happens next? Stay with us as we delve deeper into Jack and Emily's story, a tale of love, trust, and the devastating consequences of betrayal. If you've been captivated by their journey so far, join our storytelling family at Lost Love Mysteries. Hit subscribe and embark on unforgettable stories that might resonate with your own. Jack finally accepted the painful truth: there was no saving his marriage. The woman he had once loved with every fiber of his being was gone, replaced by someone unrecognizable, a stranger who had betrayed the foundation of their life together. But instead of lashing out in anger or despair, Jack chose a different path. He decided to turn Emily's betrayal back on her in a way that would leave an indelible mark, as sharp and searing as the pain she had caused him. The plan. Over the next week, Jack worked quietly, methodically, and without a trace of emotion betraying his intentions. His first step was to protect himself. He transferred every dollar from their joint accounts into one solely under his name, ensuring that Emily would have no access to their finances. Next he began packing. Not all at once, but little by little, taking only the essentials, enough to leave no visible sign of his departure. Each item he packed was a reminder of the life they had built together, now reduced to nothing more than a painful memory. He coordinated with his boss to work remotely, arranging everything so seamlessly that not even his co-workers suspected a thing. By the time Emily would realize what had happened, Jack planned to be miles away, leaving behind nothing but the shell of the home they had once shared. The departure. The night before he left, Jack booked a suite at a nearby hotel, careful to keep his whereabouts a secret. He knew Emily would likely be spending the night with her mystery lover, and this suited his plan perfectly. With the house to himself, Jack moved with purpose. He left a single note on the kitchen counter, a stark and simple message that conveyed everything he needed to say. I know everything. No apologies. No explanations. Just 3 words that would haunt Emily far more than any confrontation ever could. Before walking out the door for the last time, Jack took one final look around. The house, once filled with laughter and love, now stood cold and hollow, a reflection of his shattered heart. Satisfied that everything was in place, he closed the door quietly behind him, leaving the life he had known in the past. At the hotel, Jack poured himself a glass of whiskey and settled into the armchair by the window. He stared out at the city lights, imagining Emily's return. He pictured her confusion turning into panic as she found the note, her frantic search through the house revealing the emptiness he had left behind. Emily's awakening. At dawn, Emily stumbled into the house, the scent of another man's cologne still clinging to her clothes. She called out for Jack, expecting him to be asleep in their bed, but was met with an unsettling silence. Switching on the lights, her eyes fell on the note waiting for her on the counter. Her heart raced as she clutched the paper, the weight of its message sinking in. She moved from room to room, opening closets and drawers, only to find them half empty. The wedding photos were gone, their once shared life erased with deliberate precision. Panic turned to desperation as she grabbed her phone, dialing Jack's number. Each call went straight to voicemail, and her frantic messages grew more frantic, her voice breaking as she begged him to come back. But Jack didn't answer. Consequences. In the days and weeks that followed, Emily tried everything to reach him. She called his friends, his family, even showed up at his workplace, only to learn he had taken a remote assignment. Each unanswered call, each ignored message, chipped away at her composure until she was left with nothing but regret and heartbreak. Her new relationship, once thrilling and forbidden, quickly unraveled under the weight of reality. The excitement faded, replaced by a cold and hollow emptiness. The man she had risked everything for became just another source of disappointment, leaving her isolated and alone. Jack's new beginning. Meanwhile, Jack moved on. He settled in a new city, far from the haunting memories of his failed marriage. He built a life for himself, surrounded by new friends and opportunities that allowed him to rediscover his sense of peace and purpose. When Jack looked back on what had happened, he felt no bitterness, no anger, only a quiet sense of satisfaction. He had given Emily exactly what she wanted, freedom. But in her quest for excitement, she had trapped herself in a cage of her own making, filled with loneliness and regret. Jack's greatest revenge was not in confrontation or vengeance, but in reclaiming his life and leaving her to confront the consequences of her choices. Sometimes, the most powerful response to betrayal is simply moving forward and thriving.